The kitchen smelled of coffee that morning, faint and bitter the way it always did when I let the pot sit too long before pouring. I didn't notice at first that something was wrong. The quiet seemed ordinary, the kind of silence that fills a house when you wake up too early and the world hasn't started moving yet. But then, I saw it. A folded piece of paper weighed down by a single key, the back door key, not the front one. A detail so small it almost felt like a message in itself. My name wasn't even written on the outside. Just the note waiting. I remember staring at it for what felt like forever, my hand hovering above it like it might burn me if I touched it. When I finally unfolded the paper, her handwriting, the neat looping cursive that always seemed softer than she really was, spilled across the page in 4 cold sentences. I need to be on my own for a while. This isn't working for me anymore. I need freedom. Don't look for me. No apology, no explanation, no I love you. Just a declaration of absence, as though she were resigning from a job, as though our years together could be reduced to 4 lines and a key. I should have fallen apart. Maybe that's what she expected. She always said I held too much inside, that I didn't know how to fight for her. But in that moment the grief was laced with something else, something harder, quieter, almost frightening in its calm. She made scenes. I made plans. And the plan started the moment I folded that note back up and placed it neatly on the counter. I called Walter Chen first, a divorce lawyer I'd found in a frantic search the night before, when the fights had already hollowed out the space between us. And I knew something was coming. Walter specialized in asset division. Ruthless, efficient. The kind of man who thrived in the chaos of broken promises. Then I called the bank. Told them my card had been compromised. Our joint accounts froze with one short conversation. I still had my private account, the one she didn't know about, the one I had called my what-if fund. When I walked into our bedroom closet, half her side was empty. She'd taken the designer dresses, the shoes she wore when she wanted to impress. But she left behind the dress from our first date. She left the framed photos of us. And she left her muddy sneakers right in the middle of the new rug I had saved up to buy. That careless disrespect stung more than the absence of her things. I should have waited. Should have called her mother, or at least one of her friends. But instead I pulled out my suitcase. 2 weeks of vacation had already been approved. I had planned a hiking trip, one she had called boring, one she'd mocked. It suddenly seemed like the only sane thing to do, so I packed. I placed her note in the top drawer of my desk, locked the door and left. The mountains didn't heal me, but they stripped away the noise. For 3 days I walked until my lungs burned and my legs trembled. I barely checked my phone. But when I did, I saw the messages piling up. First from her friends. Where is she? Is she with you? Then from her, sharp and indignant. Are you seriously ignoring me? And later panicked. Why isn't my card working? Please, Nathan, answer me. I didn't answer. I let the silence speak for me. When I returned, I was steadier than I had been in years. I showered at a truck stop, put on the suit I'd packed, and drove straight to Walter's office. And that's where I saw her sitting on the low brick wall, her hair tangled, her eyes red and swollen, her hands trembling like a child who'd been caught lying. She leapt up the moment she saw me. Nathan, she choked out, her voice breaking. What the hell is going on? My card was declined at a hotel. Everyone saw. It was humiliating. And the accounts, why are they frozen? I adjusted my tie. Security breach, I told her. She blinked, her face folding from anger into desperation. This isn't funny. That's our money. I needed it. I had plans. I'm sure you did. My voice was even almost too quiet. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my sleeve. Okay. Maybe I should have talked to you first. I just needed space, Nathan. Just some time. I was going to come back. And in that moment it all crystallized. She hadn't really left me. She had pressed pause, expecting me to wait in the wings until she was finished chasing her version of freedom. The entitlement of it burned through me like fire. You left a note, I said, each word deliberate, cutting. It said, don't look for me. It didn't say I'll be back Monday. Please have the accounts ready. You wanted freedom. I'm formalizing it. Her face twisted. You can't just divorce me. We're supposed to try therapy. We're supposed to. You detonated the bomb, I whispered. I'm just picking through the rubble. I left her standing there, her voice following me through the heavy glass door of Walter's office. Her sobbing clung to me, but I didn't stop. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward, not just surviving her storms. A week of silence followed, broken only by the occasional vibration of my phone as unfamiliar numbers lit up the screen. I ignored them all, but one voicemail caught my attention, not from her, but from him. His voice was smooth, smug, the kind of tone that assumed the world bent for his convenience. "Nathan. This is Kyle. I think we got off on the wrong foot here. Lauren's upset and you're not being rational. Why don't you and I have a man-to-man chat, figure this out?" Kyle. I knew the name well. The late-night texts she said were work emergencies. The inside jokes at the office parties, the way her smile lingered too long when he spoke. I had seen it and chosen not to see it. That voicemail was all the confirmation I needed. I didn't call him back. Instead, I forwarded the message to Walter with one word in the subject line: leverage. The next evening, I saw them both through the peephole of my front door. Kyle stood in front, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. He wore a blazer that probably cost more than our monthly grocery bills, his expression carved into smug confidence. She lingered behind him, her face, pale eyes darting everywhere but toward the door. He jabbed the doorbell like he owned it. I opened the door only a few inches, the security chain rattling into place. "Yes." Kyle smiled the way a predator does when it thinks it's already won. "Nathan, good. We need to talk." "I'm talking to my lawyer," I said evenly. "Lauren should talk to hers." "That's exactly the problem," he replied, leaning toward the gap. "This attitude isn't helping. Lauren is willing to be reasonable. She's willing to come home to let you calm down so we can sort this out like adults." "We?" The word made my stomach twist. I looked past him to her and she finally whispered, "Nathan, please. He's just trying to help. This has been a misunderstanding. Let me in. I need my things. Your things will be handled by the attorneys." I said, my voice flat. Then I looked her in the eye. "Besides, the key you left wouldn't have worked anyway." Confusion crossed her face. "What are you talking about? The locks were changed the morning I left for my trip. You vacated the property. You have no legal right to be here." Kyle's mask of charm slipped into irritation. "Don't be an ass. This is her home. She just needs her passport and a few clothes. Then her lawyer can send my lawyer a request," I replied, pushing the door. His hand shot out, pressing against it. "You're going to regret this. I can make things very difficult for you." The threat hung in the air, clumsy and desperate. It was the best gift he could have given me. I locked eyes with him. "Is that a threat, Kyle?" he faltered for the briefest moment. "It's advice. I'll add it to the file," I said, and closed the door in his face. Their muffled voices lingered outside for a few minutes before fading into the night. When silence finally returned, it wasn't comforting. It was heavy-weighted with a new understanding. I walked into my office and turned on the old desktop we'd once shared. I told myself I wouldn't look, that digging into her secrets would only salt wounds. But my fingers moved anyway. She hadn't even cleared the browser history. It was all there: hotel bookings, dinner reservations, private messages with Kyle stretching back 6 months. Their jokes about me. Their excitement about their new life. Her last message the morning she left note is on the counter. "Freedom awaits. See you at the hotel in an hour." Freedom. That was the word she had used. But staring at those messages, I realized what freedom really meant for her. An escape built on lies, selfishness dressed as liberation. I didn't cry. Instead, I took screenshots of everything. I saved the files to a thumb drive labeled leverage and sent copies to Walter. My grief was no longer a raw wound. It had hardened into something sharper, something I could wield. The next month became a blur of paperwork and strategy. I didn't have to manipulate or scheme. I just had to stay organized and tell the truth. Walter handled the rest with surgical precision. The house was the first domino. Our lease was up for renewal, and I made sure it was transferred solely to my name. I had her note as proof of abandonment. And when the landlord saw it, he didn't hesitate. She called me days later, hysterical. "The landlord says I'm not on the lease anymore. He said he'll call the police if I try to come back." "Nathan, you can't do this. My name has been on that lease for 5 years. You abandoned it, Lauren," I said calmly, repeating Walter's words. "And my lawyer has the documentation to prove it." I didn't need to raise my voice. The silence on her end was enough. The fallout spread faster than I could have imagined. I hadn't said a word to our friends, hadn't smeared her name or whispered about Kyle. I didn't need to. Their actions spoke louder than I ever could. Within weeks, photos of the two of them began popping up: extravagant dinners, weekend getaways, curated smiles. It was all so performative, so desperate, like they were staging a play for an audience that had already stopped watching. And people did notice. A mutual friend, Kelly, called one night, her voice hesitant. "I'm so sorry about all this, Nathan. Honestly, it's all anyone at her office is talking about. People are taking sides." She lowered her voice. "It turns out Kyle was married too. His wife just filed. It's ugly, and everyone knows." I didn't say much, just thanked her. But inside something shifted. They weren't untouchable. Their fantasy world was crumbling under the weight of its own lies. Financial pressure came next. With the joint accounts frozen, she had nothing but what Kyle could provide. And it turned out Kyle's wealth was more illusion than reality. His assets were tied up in his own messy divorce. He couldn't carry them both. The cracks began to show. One night my phone buzzed with a voicemail from her. I didn't answer, but later I listened. Her voice was slurred, soft with tears. She rambled about a vacation we took years ago, how happy we had been, how she didn't understand how things had gotten this bad. Then her words cut sharper. "I really need my half of the security deposit from the landlord. $2,850. Can you just send it to me, Nathan?" The audacity nearly made me laugh. Not because of the money, but because of what it revealed. Even at her lowest, she saw me as the fallback, the safety net she thought would always be there. I didn't reply. Instead, I let Walter answer. He sent her lawyer an email so precise and devastating it felt like art. All assets frozen pending judgment. Any communication to go through counsel. And as a final flourish, he attached a PDF password protected labeled Kyle. Inside were the first 10 pages of their Instagram DMs full of betrayal and mockery. The requests for money stopped overnight. By the time 6 months had passed, the divorce was finalized. It wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic. No courtroom shouting matches, no last-minute confessions. It was cold, clinical, brutal in its simplicity. Walter had presented everything: her note of abandonment, the evidence of infidelity, Kyle's threats at my door. Piece by piece, the case built itself. In the end, she walked away with almost nothing. Her personal belongings boxed and stored. The car her parents had bought her. A fraction of the savings, far less than she expected. Meanwhile, the house became mine. Because she had vacated it. Because the lease renewal bore only my name, the option to buy passed solely to me. I signed the papers a month later, the down payment secured from the account she never knew about. When I held those keys in my hand, it wasn't victory, I felt it was clarity. This home wasn't the stage set she had walked out of, it was mine, rebuilt from the ashes she left behind. As for them, word spread quickly. They'd moved into a cramped apartment in a less desirable part of the city. Their finances were a disaster, their reputations at work in shambles. Neither got the promotions they'd been expecting. Senior leadership wanted no part of their drama. Their social media posts dwindled, the glittering facade dimming into silence. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. Instead, I let life settle into something new, something steady. I painted the kitchen a calming blue, replaced her Scandinavian chair with a bookshelf stacked with novels I'd always meant to read. Slowly, the house began to feel like mine. Not the shadow of what we'd built together, but the foundation of what I could build alone. One night I got an email from Spotify. "Your password has been changed." I hadn't changed it. For a moment I was confused until I realized she was still using our family plan. A small invisible tether I hadn't even remembered to cut. I logged in, saw her profile, and with a few clicks removed her. Reset the password. It felt final. Like closing a door I hadn't realized was still cracked open. I don't hate her. Hate is too heavy, too alive. What I feel now is something cooler, quieter indifference. I don't think of her often, but sometimes late at night I remember the man standing in that silent kitchen, holding a note weighted down by a key. I honor his grief, but I also honor the strength that grief became. They will probably spend years blaming me, spinning stories where I am the villain who abandoned her. They'll never understand that I didn't seek revenge. I didn't destroy them. I simply stepped out of the way and let the consequences of their own choices catch up. All I did was hold the door open and let justice serve itself. If you've listened this far, thank you. Stories like mine aren't easy to tell, but maybe they remind us that strength isn't always loud. It can be quiet, patient, steady. If this touched you, I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe for more stories about resilience, betrayal, and the lessons hidden inside them. And please, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your own reflections.